Now, moving on, we're going to talk about an issue that resonates, I know, with thousands of families and comes up every now and then, and that is the issue of childcare reforms. And it is under scrutiny again, and specifically when we're looking at the childcare subsidy, and we're talking about what that subsidy actually subsidises. And we're not just talking about the cost of it, but more about the rigidity. There was a great article today penned by Jen Fleming in the Daily Telegraph, and it talks about just the rigidity of how the childcare subsidy actually can be used. And of course, this comes on the week that the government has announced now that every family has access to 3 days of childcare, irrespective of parents' earning capacity. It's no longer means tested. But of course, you can only use that subsidy at childcare centres, and that doesn't suit everyone. And the article goes on to say that we need different care for our children, but we are forced to squeeze our lives into a narrow definition of acceptable care that the government puts forward, one that assumes full-time work, standard hours, uninjured kids, that's a funny one, and predictable lives. Now, this is a topic I've written about quite a lot for News Corp papers, and the issue is this: the government will only provide relief for parents in terms of giving them so-called choice, and that's how it's framed for mothers who either want to stay at home or go back to work, but they'll only do that if you send your child, of course, to childcare. Now, this is not about mothers who want to go back to work or not, and I think the feminist movements and progressive movements are about giving women choice. And I went back myself very, very early on when my children were 3 to 4 months, very, very part-time. But I was enormously lucky that 1 day a week my baby was cared for by my in-laws and another day a week by their father, which proved to be a wonderful situation. I was very privileged to be able to do that. But of course, not all women are in that situation. I don't know of any women who have, we're talking babies. As a developmental psychologist, I can absolutely see the benefits for childcare in the 3 to 4 year age gap before starting school. We're learning a lot of skills that are going to help them transition into kindergarten. But when we're talking about babies under 12 months of age, I don't have any friends that are very happy and willing to put their 6-month-old, 4-month-old over, sometimes still breastfed, over into childcare.
You don't have a baby to go, oh, and I can't wait to get them to the childcare centre.
Progression.
It's
that's
not part of it.
I feel like we're baby-making machines if that's the case.
You want to be at home. Most mothers want to be at home with their babies, but where this sort of stuff drives me crazy is childcare centre. My kids never went to a big childcare centre ever. And I'm sorry if people that do send their kids there and you love them or you own a childcare centre, and I'm sure there's some fabulous ones. But I just never liked the concept of my kids going into some big centre. And, the only option we had, we were in rural New South Wales. So when we were in Moree, there was a couple of childcare centres, and we were lucky we had a great family daycare network, so we could utilise that. But when we moved out to the farm and we were 80 k's out of town, there are no childcare centres. And so this is where this inflexibility comes from, and it's like so many of the policies we see, particularly Labor governments, spew out. They're only about what happens in the seat of Grayndler or the seat of Sydney, or, if you're in a region, if you're in a metropolitan centre, there's childcare centres, all of that. So they push things towards that. And the policy settings are all for people in metropolitan areas. If you're
shift workers, what about shift workers?
Well, shift workers, forget it if you've got a job that requires travel.
Yeah.
And, this is where we need to invest in the child themselves and the family, not in sporting and fundamentally subsidising childcare centres. Have you ever seen someone who owns childcare centres not driving a really nice car in a really big house? They do very well for themselves. We need to make sure that we're actually funding the family so they can make the decisions themselves, whether that's an au pair, whether it's a nanny getting together with a group of girlfriends and sharing a nanny, whether it's grandparents being able to come in, whatever the makeup might be. We need to make it fit for purpose for families to make the best decision and not just subsidised childcare centres.
But that's the question. What is actually the fundamental driver and motivation behind this policy? Is it actually about giving women choice or giving families choice? Is it about doing what's best for the child? That's how they try to frame it. Oh, it's just helping women get back to work. It's good developmentally for children. But it's clearly not about giving women choice if you're not giving them the choice to use informal childcare, to use in-laws, grandparents, or God forbid, themselves stay home. Oh my goodness, that's a crazy thought. And also on the developmental point, there's a lot of evidence coming out that says putting your child in childcare, especially when they're under 3 years old, for over 15, 20 hours a week, does have negative impacts on them. And I think that is the point. The real reason for this policy is just the government trying to get the female workforce participation rate up so they can boost their bottom line and collect more tax revenue. But now we as taxpayers are going to have to spend, it's about $16 to $18 billion a year we're spending on childcare subsidies. Give that money to families directly. Don't subsidise. Don't just give out middle-class welfare.
Well, it's about paying for boosting the education union. It's about indoctrinating children early. And it's got nothing to do with developmental issues around children, because children don't have to go to childcare centres. A lot of 3 and 4-year-olds go to preschools before they go to kindergarten, which are not daycare. They're actually early learning opportunities for children, socialisation for children, all of those things that are important. But everything has been impacted by when you see socialist government initiatives. And, the NDIS plays a part in this. There used to be a lot of community groups that used to run music classes and storybook things and all these sorts of community-led programs. A lot of them got funding from councils or state governments. That all disappeared with the NDIS. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but a lot of these were there to support a lot of kids with special needs and challenges in integrating into broader communities. And they've all disappeared because the funding got taken away by state governments because they went, this can all go under the NDIS
and
now.
It's all become commercialised. Same thing with childcare. If you actually look at the rates of informal care, which was community daycares, a neighbour down the road, that's halved. But then the rates of formal institutional care have gone up because that is the only thing the government's now supporting.